Nice to meet you again this afternoon with Mamika on Mamika's channel. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon all of my students. Today's learning we are going to continue about the subject of a basic listening. This one you are going to listen again, yeah. So especially for the material of listening today, that is about the listening, how to use and how to start about the computer items, and you are going to know about some function of the items on the computer. Okay, we look at the learning objectives today. The first, you are able to identify the things are as a part of a computer. And then secondly, you are able to listen the steps how to use the parts of a computer. And then the third, you are able to describe the things in the computer and also function of each item on a computer. And then four, you are able to answer some questions related to the process of using computer. Okay, student, in this audio listening, you will learn some words or phrases first before we start to the comprehension exercises. As usual, you have to listen about some vocabularies and also phrases are related to the audio of the listening. Mamika has got 20 phrases here that you should know before you listen to the audio. Okay, now Mamika will describe the meaning of each phrase, yeah, so you can clearly understand while you are listening. So you have to know first about the phrases meaning. Okay, now number one, navigation tool. Navigation tool is a mouse thing or to move on the pointer and a cursor to select something. And then two, cursor. Cursor is an indicator used to show the current position for user interaction on a computer monitor or other display device that will respond to input from a text input or pointing device. 3. Round body is the form of body of a thing which is rounded shaped. 4. A long tail is a form of a cable to connect between mouse and computer. 5. Wireless is transmitting signals over invisible radio waves instead of wires or non-cable. And then 6. Nearby. Nearby is close at hand or not far from. And then number 7, circuit board is a thin rigid board containing an electric circuit. Number 8, storage media is the device that actually holds the data. 9, to be hooked up is connected to other electric things. Number 10, device is a unit of a physical hardware or equipment that provides one or more computing functions within a computer system. 11, put together is bringing together or join each other. Number 12, the main part is the central part of the computer. 13, be laid out is be arranged in a pattern or design. Number 14, figure out is to solve something. 15, assign is to decide that something has a particular value or a level. 16, command is an instruction to a computer to perform a particular action. Number 17, old-fashioned is not modern or belonging to a typical of a time in the past. Number 18, a carriage return. A carriage return is the key on a computer keyboard that you press in order to move down a line on the screen. And then number 19, arrow keys. The arrow keys here are a keys or one of 4 keys on a computer, especially on a computer keyboard, that you can use to move the cursor up, down, left, or right on the screen. And then the last number 20, lay hand on. It means it's putting your hand down on something. Okay, after you listen to some phrases or words related to audio listening of how to use a computer and also the function of the computer items, now it is time for you to listen to the audio. While you are listening, you can read some questions as the exercises to measure your comprehensions while you listen to the audio. You have downloaded the comprehension exercises on SIM Unissula. Okay, students, there are 30 questions about the audio that you have to answer related to the audio of listening. Pay attention to the audio. Listen carefully. Okay, listen now.
Welcome to Computer Basics 1, Getting Started, presented by me, Charlie Sawyer, for Wilderness Coast Public Libraries. This is a presentation for people who have never used a computer and need help from the very beginning. So let's get started. First thing we're going to do is look at the parts of a computer. Depending on where you're sitting, most of these parts are on a table or desk around you or in front of you. Of course, you're looking at a monitor, which is like a TV screen, and it acts pretty much just like a TV screen, except of course it can have, in addition to moving pictures and still pictures, it can have text as well that you can type and edit. Using this thing, the keyboard, which is like a typewriter, and you'll see that the keys are laid out just like a typewriter, but they have some extra keys and some extra things that we'll be going over. Then there's the mouse. The mouse is what we call a navigation and selection tool. It allows you to move a little cursor onto different things on the screen, and by pressing a button on the mouse to select them or to make something else happen on the screen. It's called a mouse because it's got a little round body with a long tail connecting to the computer, although these days sometimes it's wireless, so there's no tail. Somewhere nearby, either next to the computer, on the floor under the table, or under the computer on top of the table, is a box. It could be vertical like this, it could be on its side, but it's the computer itself. And it's what does all the work, and it has circuit boards, fans, and storage media, and ways for other devices to be hooked up to it, and ways for transportable storage media to be put in and out of it, such as CDs and memory sticks. You may have a printer nearby, or it may be across the room, but it's what prints the words and pictures that you type on paper. You might have some speakers, which are just like stereo speakers for voice, music, and other sounds. And somewhere there's a modem, there's a device, it may not be visible to you there, but there's some way to connect to the outside world or to a network of some kind. These days, mostly it's a connection to the World Wide Web or the Internet. These are all the parts put together. Now, if you can think about the monitor, the speaker, and the printer as three different ways to get information out of the computer, by watching, reading, listening, and printing. There's only two ways to get, immediately anyway, information into the computer, and that's the keyboard and the mouse. But the computer is what does the work. We'll start with the keyboard and the mouse. Let's take a look at the keyboard. The keyboard, thankfully, the main part of it anyway, is laid out pretty much as typewriters have been laid out for well over 100 years now, I suppose, with the QWERTY, Q-W-E-R-T-Y style of keyboard layout, standard typewriter layout. That's the bulk of those keys on that keyboard. But there are a lot of other keys here, and so that's what we're going to talk about right now. Go to the upper left, there's an escape key. That's sort of an emergency, let's get out of here key. It doesn't always work, but most programs are set up so that if you're in the middle of something and you decide you change your mind, that you can often press that key and kind of get out of the thing you're doing and back to another screen where you might be able to figure out what to do next better. There's a row of keys called function keys. We're not going to cover them today, but they're numbered F1 through F12. And if you were using, say, a computer at a point of sale in a store, you might assign specific functions to those keys, such as add sales tax or something like that. But it's going to be different for every setup, although they do have functions that are pretty handy. It's just for a later, more advanced course. There'll be some specialized keys near the upper right, such as print screen, scroll lock, pause. We're not going to cover those today either because they're rarely used. Let's get back to this, the main keyboard, the QWERTY keyboard. There's numbers along the top, and above those numbers are individual characters like an @ sign, a number sign, a dollar sign. And just like regular old-fashioned typewriters, pressing the Shift key, and you'll find Shift keys on the lower left and lower right side of the computer keyboard. Those Shift keys enable you to make capital letters out of the regular letters of the alphabet, or if there's two commands on a key, pressing Shift will allow you to type the upper command. For instance, if you wanted to type a dollar sign, you would press Shift and then press the number 4 at the very top where the dollar sign is. You've got a tab key, which is very much like an indent key on a typewriter, although it has some more functions. You've got a caps lock key, which works just like the locking of capitals key on a typewriter. On the right side, you've got an enter key, which is actually has functions very similar to the carriage return handle on an old-fashioned typewriter, or the carriage return or return button on a electric typewriter. Upper right, you'll see a backspace key, which allows you to backspace and essentially erase the letters you just typed. But that's, can't forget the space bar. The large bar in the center, near the bottom, at the bottom, is the space bar, and that's for putting spaces between words or characters. There are at least two other keys that I want to tell you about. You'll look down in the lower left, you'll see a control, CTRL, and an alternate, ALT key, and you'll usually see them repeated on the right side as well. And those have some special functions that we probably won't get to today, but that's about the main difference between that and the standard QWERTY keyboard. You've also got a set of cursor control keys. If you look down, you'll find 4 arrow keys, up, down, left, and right. Those are used for navigating around the screen, as we'll see. And above that are certain other keys which help you move your cursors or icons around the screen. And most computers have a numerical keyboard, a keypad on the right that looks very much like a calculator or adding machine, and acts in pretty much the same way depending on, you can simply type numbers in a document, or you can do some other things with those keys as well. The mouse is the other main way you have of telling the computer what to do, and we'll cover the mouse. As we stated earlier, the mouse is a navigation and selection tool. It, with the keyboard, is one of the two ways that you tell your computer what to do. The mouse is usually connected with a wire to the computer, although these days wireless mice are becoming more and more common. They work the same way, but with a wireless mouse, you just got to make sure you've got it pointed the right direction. When it is pointed the right direction, the side facing the computer or away from you is going to have two buttons, one on the left side, one on the right side. These are usually large spaces, not small buttons on the mouse. There are more areas than points on the mouse. Many mice in the middle also have something called a scroll wheel, which you can experiment with later. But mostly, the thing you'll do mostly with the mouse is move it around on the table or on a mouse pad and press that button on the left click. You hold the mouse by laying your hand gently over it. The illustration shown here is for a right-handed person. And when a right-handed person lays their hand on the mouse, their index finger falls naturally on this left button area of the mouse. Now, for a left-handed person, it would be, say, the ring finger would fall over the left button. But what happens is when you lay your hand on the mouse and you move it away from you, toward you in circles, keeping it straight, that is, keeping the wire side or the button side facing the computer, you can move it around and it'll move a pointer or cursor on the screen. That's basically how you use a mouse. Now, as you can go ahead now and lay your hand on the mouse and move it around on the screen in front of you. You should be able to see a cursor or a pointer that looks like one of the ones shown on the screen here. But what do you do with a mouse? Well, we're going to find out, because next we're going to talk about the desktop. That is the area on the screen that is what you see when you first turn on your computer. The first thing you'll probably notice about the desktop is that the one on the screen in this little presentation doesn't look like the one on your computer. That's because this is customizable. Every computer is going to have a different background picture, different icons placed on the desktop, these little symbols that are around there, program icons usually, or file folders. There's going to be different icons at the bottom as well. But they're all arranged in pretty much the same way. The big, broad, full-screen desktop area will contain program icons and file folders and maybe a few other tools. The notification area in the lower right, you won't mess with that much unless you want to, say, change the volume of sound on your computer. There's a few other uses that later on you'll get into. In the middle at the bottom, whatever program you have open at the time will be shown there. Near the left side, the Quick Launch toolbar, that's customizable as well. Every computer is going to look a little different there, and some of them may have very few or no icons in that area. But every Windows computer does have one thing in common on that desktop, and that is the Start button in the lower left. The Start button is, for most people, exactly what it says, where you start. On a Windows Vista computer, that Windows Start button doesn't say Start anymore. Unless you roll your cursor over it with the mouse, then a little sign pops up telling you what it is. But it's the key to getting started with a Windows computer. After you practice using the mouse and learn how to click, you're going to click on that Start button, and it's going to open up a menu. And it looks pretty complicated, and it is. But this is the best place to get started when learning how to use a computer. And as intimidating as it may seem, this is as simple as they usually make it.
Okay students, after you listen to the audio, please do the exercise as well. I hope that you can do well all of the questions, and you can put the answer for all the questions that I gave you. Okay, this is our material of listening today. And we will see you again on the next material on the different topic. Thank you. See you again. Don't forget to give like, comment, and subscribe. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.